Miss Leslie's Dolls is one of these really odd curiosity type movies, something I had never heard of before. Came out in the early 70s. It was a movie that was thought to be lost but was rediscovered, rehandled, given a terrific transfer and released on this new Blu Ray. A movie that, well, really does fit a time and place. Its tale is a familiar one we've seen before. We have this group of four people. One seems to be a teacher, the other three seem to be kind of pupils, I would guess, of some sort, although they all seem the same age. And there is a thunderstorm and they get stuck out in this. They have nowhere to go, they run out of petrol, gas, so they decide to go to the nearest house, which happens to be the house of Miss Leslie. Miss Leslie is a very strange character, very odd. This woman has 5 o'clock shadow. She has a voice that doesn't quite sync with her lip movements, and there's lots of fun to be had with just this setup, these 5 characters, and this is primarily the people that are going to be spending the rest of the movie with. And we have these characters whose acting abilities are extremely varied. Some of them work sometimes, some of them are just downright awful, but it fits into this aesthetic of a low budget horror movie that follows the tropes of things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of Wax, Psycho even. It takes all these elements for these different movies and mashes them together and has a whole lot of enthusiasm and craft. There are some different moments throughout this movie, and fairly early on you know that Miss Leslie is not who she says she is, or there is something extremely strange and wrong with her, and that's fairly understandable. And the fun comes from when is the action going to happen, when is the murders going to take hold of this movie. But it changes into something a little bit different. It becomes a little bit more twisted in the way the plot evolves. It's not just about murdering people for the sake of it. Miss Leslie has a plan of sorts that she, well, you know what, it's just not my place to tell you. I think you need to check out the movie to find this one out. But there's lots of things in the movie that do work fantastically well. There is a nightmarish sequence later on with Miss Leslie's dolls, which really should be mentioned. She has these lifelike dolls that just sit in a room. They're like mannequin size, they're almost like real people. They just kind of sit there. That's her dolls, that's her passion. She used to run a doll factory with her family, so there is reasons behind her making these things, but they are very different from the usual dolls. They're very lifelike. And there is a dream sequence later on with one of the characters, Miss Frost, who has this nightmare, wakes up, and there's all these dolls coming around her, coming to life, that's rather strange and twisted and visceral and odd, otherworldly, and it feels something doesn't really belong within the rest of the movie, but you know, somewhat it kind of is there, and it works really well. And the ending especially of this movie is something that I did not see coming. It's a strange, twisted, edgy kind of ending to this thing where it just, I mean, it lays all the pieces out of so what's going to happen. You just don't expect it to actually happen that way, and when it does, it's a surprise. It's interesting to see a movie go in that direction, and I found it fresh and exciting. Even after all these years of this movie, 40 plus some years since it originally came out, it was surprising. It was edgy. It has low budget with bad acting. It's a kind of dodgy setups and sets, but it makes up for it with so much enthusiasm, so much passion kind of through into it. This really weird and strange plot that steals from other famous movies but creates it into its own thing throughout this movie. And it really is something that needs to be seen to be believed. If you're a fan of these kind of movies, if you like some of the other releases that came out recently, like Assault or Deathline particularly, Miss Leslie's Dolls is going to give you a slice of something that fits into that era, but it still has something to say today, and it still surprises today with some of its storytelling narratives, which I really enjoyed within this movie. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not a perfect movie. Far from it. Like I said, some of the acting is ropey, set designs aren't great, but there are some things that just work tremendously well. Miss Leslie is constantly dubbed over with a voice, and it's odd but fitting for that character at the same time, and it kind of matches up almost good enough to forget about it after a while. If you haven't picked this up, or if you're considering picking this up, I just want to give you the push to go ahead. You've probably not seen anything else like it. It's very different, it's very of the time, of the place, but it's still kind of cutting edge today with some of its narrative storytelling elements. I think you're going to like it. I would love to know your opinion of this movie once you've seen it. Please come back and let me know in the comment box below what you thought of this. I'd appreciate it a lot, and I'll see you next time on Man vs. Film.